Hello and welcome to Consolation League, a Warhammer podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott,
And I'm Paul.
and this episode is talking AOS. Nothing but AOS.
It's
AOS
all,
all the time.
yeah, AOS from minute one until I can't think of anything else to jammer away about. This is the my love of AOS and Festival of the White Dwarf tournament recap.
hmm
Yeah, out here in from back here in Kingston.
Yeah, I'm really
Ages.
anxious to hear this because this was I was getting updates during the day of how things were
Yep.
going and getting pictures
hmm
and stuff like that. So I'm really curious to hear about how the games actually went because I
hmm
know we were just saying it before the podcast started. AOS is your system right now. It's your jam. It's a
It
breath of fresh air
really,
for you.
it really is. I'll be honest. I know some of the 40K players that listen to it. Like, I can't promote it enough, but you know what? It's a better game system than 40K right now, 10th edition, hands down. Um, it is, and it's not just because I'm actually winning games. That's not the reason why I like it more. Um, it's uh, it's just way more engaging. If you didn't have command points left in a match of 40K, your level of engagement is down, right?
hmm
Because paying command points for stratagems is how you engage in your opponent's turn
That's
in
true.
Warhammer 40,000. Whereas in Age of Sigmar, yeah, they've got command points, but your units have native abilities that are always being activated in your phase and in their phase. And so
hmm
there's way more back and forth. It's much more like a tennis match uh, than I would say like Age of Sigmar is like playing tennis and Warhammer 40,000 is like playing chess. That's how I kind of, it's much more like, uh, you know, uh, maybe that's a terrible analogy. What the fuck am I talking about?
It sounded
I don't
good.
know, play chess. It sounded good. It
That's not,
sounded like it
I was gonna
started.
say, well, that's why
I
I
should start
probably
playing
suck at
chess.
40K
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I suck at chess.
yeah. Maybe that's, huh. I don't know how to play games, period.
Yeah.
So, so maybe that's the whole problem here. Um, but you're on your toes, I
Yeah.
think, far more, and I feel like you're not just sitting back waiting to get smacked a bunch of times and then roll
hmm
a bunch of saves. You're definitely you're playing the game nonstop. All the stratagems are universal, so you'll do your hero phase stuff, and then I'll do my hero phase stuff. And hero phase for our 40K friends is the equivalent of the command phase, except there's
hmm
way more to do in the hero phase, it
Yeah.
seems, in AOS than there is in 40K. And then you move on to movement, and it's like I do all my movement stuff, and then you might have an ability in your army that says in any movement phase you can move this model, you can do this, do that. If
hmm
your opponent moves here, you could. So you're just engaged all the time,
Yeah.
all the time.
Which is tricky because then it's one of those things where in 40K you can kind of take a minute and just stand back.
hmm
But in this one, you really have to be thinking at all times, okay, so what are my army rules? What can I be doing? Is there
Yeah.
something that I can reactively impede what they're trying to do and that kind of
Yes.
thing? It's not
Yeah.
a
No,
tit for tat.
it's not. No, not quite. And another thing that's interesting about AOS and always keeps you thinking is battle tactics. So their version of secondaries
hmm
um, often require you to have two units to do it. So most of the battle tactics will require you to, uh, you can take the flanks. So units on either side of the table, do not waver, get into two fights and don't lose any units. Like these kind of things.
Right.
So once you're thinned out and your forces are thinned out quite a bit, you'll find, well, I'm no longer able to score secondary. So there's I don't know. The strategy involved in it, I'm enjoying a lot more. Um, and the the set ter like the terrain is set in the battle plan, so it's
Hmm.
already planned for you in the match, which is interesting. And I find cover isn't as like big a deal like
Right.
as it is in a modern military or future modern military kind of shooting guns and lasers and all that kind of stuff game. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, it was so on December 1st, Jan and I went down to Nexus for it was 18 people signed up.
That's a good
18 people were
tournament.
there. I thought it was a good turnout. 2,000 point Festival of the White Dwarf at Kingston Gaming Nexus. Um, so I was playing Slaves to Darkness, uh, running the I think it's called like the God's Wrath Warband. It basically gives you an army ability where you place a token on an objective, and at the end of your turn, for every enemy unit contesting that objective, you have to be contesting it as well. You hand out D3 mortal wounds. So it's not the hugest punch, but it's a little punch to your enemy
That's
at the end and
it's a
can
nice
be
little kick in the
decisive.
teeth.
Yeah, can be decisive in the right moment.
Hmm.
I ran Be'lakor
Of course.
with a reinforced unit of Chaos Chosen. So reinforced in Age of Sigmar means you added as many models as you could to that unit. So you maxed it out. So the cap for this was 10. So it was my big hammer kind of unit. They get like 3 attacks each. They do crit mortals. Um, this is a big like run up and punch you in the face kind of unit.
Right.
Uh, and then I had a unit of Dark Oath Fell Riders. So these are like barbarians on horseback that throw javelins. Because I have
Okay.
no shooting except for these guys.
Right.
They're not very good at hitting, but if they do manage to get some hits in, they do D3 wounds, which is not bad. Because wounds in damage in AOS spills
Spills
over.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. Like
Hmm.
it, it avoids that kind of thing in 40K. You spray a bunch of Necron warriors with all these like 2 damage shots, and you're like, well, you only killed 2 of them because
Yeah.
it was only like 2 wounds, even though it was like
A
way
big,
more
huge rail
damage.
gun goes into everything. It's like,
Exactly.
all right, there's one guy.
Yeah, you're like, okay, you killed 1 Necron.
Yeah.
Congrats. Yeah, way to go. As opposed to, a gigantic Magna laser destroyer death ray thing should be able to wipe a unit out, right?
Yeah.
Like some death from so that's a kind of a cool feature that I like at AOS. So that was my one what they call one regiment.
Hmm.
Was Be'lakor, the Chosen, and the Fell Riders, and then my other regiment was my Chaos Sorcerer Lord, a unit of Chaos Warriors, and a unit of Chaos Knights, which are like just Chaos Warriors on horses with lances, and then a unit of Varangard, which are like the Chaos Chosen, except on scary horses.
Okay.
And they're just 3 models in the unit. So, very happy with my list.
It's a
I've
different
played it
list than what you've had in the past because that means
absolutely.
you dropped the one you were questioning about
I did. I did. I
for different
changed it up.
units.
I got in. So I was traditionally before I was running Abraxia, who's another
Hmm.
like themed character with the unit of Varangard because she buffs them. And when it came down to it, and I played a couple practice games, she's just too expensive. And yet you don't get enough out of her
Hmm.
or the points cost I found in the matches I played. So I wanted to add something that had mobility and shooting, and the Fell Riders fit that quite nicely. And then having my Sorcerer Lord in the list let me cast more spells in my hero phase, so I was doing more stuff. Um, so I was a bit happy with the list. I've no at the end of this tournament, I had no complaints about my list, and
Good.
in fact, I won't be changing the list unless there's a points thing that forces me to,
Oh,
because I'm
wow.
quite happy with how it performed. I think it does well, and yeah, so that was my list. Oh, and then for those that play AOS and know it, my manifestation lore for it. So manifestations are basically spells you summon that provide like three kind of unique, well, sometimes three, but they provide unique units for you to manipulate. You can't score battle tactics with them, but they can kill stuff
Okay.
or otherwise impede them, like interfere with them, slow their movement, just mess with them. I ran the Morbid Conjuration manifestation lore. So it's like a purple sun of Shaiish. It's a grave tide, some shackles, and a malevolent maelstrom. I basically only used the grave tide, the sun, and the shackles. They were kind of like my go-tos. But so that was my list going into it.
The
And
Purple
then
Sun,
Janet
I gotta say, just for a second, I really like that model. It's really
is
cool.
cool.
It's not
It's
it's not a crazy out there thing, but it just looks really, really cool.
It looks really, really cool. Yeah. One of the nice things about AOS is like I picked up it's a box that includes like, I want to say four, maybe
Okay.
more manifestation lores in it.
That's cool.
Um, so, it felt like a bargain, even though
Yeah.
it probably wasn't. I can't remember how much it was. No doubt it wasn't. Um, so that's what I ran, and then Janet ran her Daughters of Cain,
Right.
and she brought Marathi Cain and the Shadow Queen, which is an 800 point
Ooh.
model. It's two models that are 800 points total. They have to stay together. Like they have to. You can't bring like one without bringing the other.
Right.
They come as one kind of unit on the list, but act separately on the board, and you can do separate things with them. And then she brought a unit of reinforced blood sisters, which are the snake ladies with spears.
Okay.
And then she brought a unit of blood stalkers, which are the snake ladies with bows. And she brought a Melis Iron Scale, which is kind of like a lieutenant that goes with well, you don't attach them to the units, but that's who you'd keep her close to your blood sisters with spears.
Hmm.
And then two units of warlocks, which are basically little wizard elf dudes on horses running around causing havoc. Two units of, a unit of Kinnerai life takers and a unit of Kinnerai heart renders, which are basically um, witchy elf ladies with like bat wings who can deep strike. One
Okay.
of the units shoots, and the other unit fights and runs, does
Melee.
hit and
Okay.
runs. Both units are able to like attack and then fall back d6
Shoot
before
and
your
scoot.
opponent shoot and scoot. Two units that can shoot and scoot. So it was again really good list.
Hmm.
I don't think she'll change it at all. We'll kind of get to why closer to the end, but so my first game of the match was against a guy named Ocean, and he was playing Disciples of Zinch. So
Okay.
never played anything like this before. I've never played Thousand Suns. I've never played a Demon's List where people are playing like Zinch focused stuff before. So this was for me a brand new experience altogether.
Awesome. Perfect.
And as Ocean kind of like he had like two Lords of Change, a couple Flamer units, a bunch of like pink horrors and blue horrors,
And
just like
brimstones.
yeah, like
Yep.
yeah, he had a sea of like 20 of them. Like he had all these like
Yeah.
little models. Um and he starts explaining it, and I'm half taking it in, right? It's information overload because you hear blah 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 does D3 mortals, blah 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 does D3 mortals, blah blah, it gives you the burning keyword which gives you D3 mortals. Like I was like, oh, I'm in for start of this match. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna get shot off the board turn one. So we get cooking, and this army really what I found it did a lot of was his hero phase was probably about 15 minutes because it was him casting spells and
Okay.
basically lobbing out damage to me like right off the hop. Um, thankfully, I weathered that storm. He moved up. He played pretty cautiously with his two bigger monsters.
Okay.
Uh, and I just got aggressive right away. I should say this has now changed because the Slaves of Darkness battle tomes come out, but I was running basically Mark of Corn on everything, which gives me +1 attacks on the charges. So I went big push right off the hop, kept
Hmm.
my Bellacore well backed, cast a couple spells to buff guys, summoned a few things, and then just big push. I had him on his back heels the rest of the match because I got right in his face into
Right.
melee. And you can cast spells at guys in melee. There's nothing to stop that process, but I was just starting to chew through his units almost immediately.
Right.
And it was on objectives that he couldn't push me off because I was causing too many problems for him uh, in other places. So really fun match. Um, Went obviously in my favor. Um, by no means was it like I didn't. I think it was like 28-20. It wasn't like I
Didn't,
thumped him. It
yeah,
wasn't
a
a
blowout
st
or anything.
it wasn't a blowout. Like he still was able to do some scoring.
Hmm.
Um, but and he was relatively. I think it was his first time playing in an AOS tournament. So he was still figuring out his army and things like that. And we
Fair enough.
chatted about it afterwards. And I made the suggestion that, you know what, I would probably play more aggressively with your monsters. Like you sat them back.
Hmm.
His big main, his Kairos Fate Weaver. It's like that big chicken,
Yep.
big chicken guy. You
Hmm.
kind of kept it in the back. You've played it. You've played it as
I've
like in
played against it.
40K.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said to him, turn two, you should have brought him out to start of because a lot of my stuff was out of range because he kept them back.
Hmm.
So when he was trying to cast spells, it's like, well, this is 12 inches and I'm outside of that, or
Hmm.
caused problems for him on his edges, so it didn't quite work out the same. But yeah, no, a lot of fun. So we finished relatively early. Finished before the first, morning that the round was over.
Nice.
And I look back, and Janet's two tables over. And so I walk over, and I'm like, "How's it going here?" And she's playing, I think a guy by the name of Carrie, who I've played before, an orc player.
Okay.
And he's got, this big orc on a dragon, and he's got all these like, scary looking models, right? And I'm like, "How's it going?" And she gives me this look, and I'm like, "Oh no, it's not going well." And she's like, "I'm winning." Almost like she's embarrassed. She's like, "I'm winning." It was great. So Janet managed to win her first game as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So we were both off to a good start. For me, I was like, okay, I've won my one, so I'll be happy
Good
with
feeling
whatever
for the
happens
day. You're like,
next.
got that out of the way.
Got that out of the way. No pressure now. Whatever happens, happens. I
Hmm.
at least won one, so I'm happy. Game two, I roll into Tommy, fan of the show, former guest, my nemesis. No, I'm just kidding. He's running Stormcast Eternals.
Okay.
He's got a reinforced brick of Annihilators, which are like basically Stormcast Terminators.
Yep.
He's got a handful. He's got a reinforced brick of like Vindicators. He's got a couple of regular name characters, Lord Impertinent and Impertinent or Celestin or something like that. And
Right.
he's got Yndrasta, who is like the cover model for the Age of Sigmar third edition. Big warrior woman in glorious wings with an enormous spear.
Right.
And I'm like I have the model. It's actually done and painted, and I've been toying around with a Stormcast list because of the two starter boxes.
Yep.
I basically have 2,000 points, and so I'm totally familiar with Stormcast and how they play. And I know that Yndrasta is a monster killer, so she can the damage on her spear, both shooting and melee, gets doubled against monsters. So it does like flat 6 damage. So I'm like, if she goes anywhere near Bellacore,
Yeah, he's done.
he's fucking dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be eliminated.
Yeah.
He He ignores rend, but it's still a 4-up save, so it's
Yeah.
50-50. So I'm like, okay, so that's my big threat to stay away from. Uh, so Tommy and I get working away. I can't remember what the battle plan was for that one. It may have been like Battle for the Pass. I think that's what it was because I think it was the one where there's basically three objective markers in my territory and three objective markers in his. And it's, hold one, score so many, hold two, score so many, hold more than your opponent uh, to a total of six, right?
Right.
Because
Okay.
AOS is low scoring.
Hmm.
It's all you can only get 10 points around, 4 points from battle tactics for essentially secondaries, and 6 points for primary. Um, so uh, we get started, and Tommy, I think the first chance he won priority, he takes the double turn right away and
Okay.
forgoes
Scoring
a
battle
battle
tactics.
tactic in lieu of taking the double turn in the hope that he's going to do some
Kill
serious damage to
Bellicor.
my arm, kill Be'lakor.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately for Tommy, and I'd explained this to him, the Dark Master doesn't fool around. And he took the double turn, and I said, well, remember, Be'lakor in your hero phase, I can Dark Master, I can once per game, he can
Shut
pick a
somebody
unit
down.
and he turns that unit off for the rest of that turn. And sure enough, I was like, I'm gonna pick Yndrasta. He's like, I'm still doing the double turn. I said, fair enough. So I'm like, you do your hero phase stuff, and then I'm gonna do my hero phase stuff. So
Hmm.
turns over to me. I'm like, okay, I'll Dark Master Yndrasta. So on a 3-up, she can't use any abilities. And in AOS, everything's an ability. Movement's an ability. Shooting's an ability. Fighting's an ability. It's a crazy powerful.
Yeah, that seems
Uh,
broken, to be fair. It seems like a
well,
broken thing to
he's
be able to just be like, okay, that unit can do nothing this turn.
it's on a 3-up though. It's not
Okay.
automatic. It's on a 3-up, so pretty good, right?
Hmm.
So it doesn't always work. Uh, it is once per game. So and he's 400 points.
Right.
And he's not that good in combat. Like he's decent in combat.
Hmm.
But what you're really bringing him for is he's
This,
a two cast wizard and he can Dark Master.
right.
And in AOS, that can really cause a lot of problems. It really cuts people's
Hmm.
momentum down. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna move Yndrasta. I think I roll a 5 or something. It's like, okay, she's not moving. And that's his whole big push. He was gonna charge, he deep striked his annihilators in, getting ready for a charge. He had Yndrasta coming up the front, and I'm like, she's shut down. He's just got the Annihilators. He charges with the Annihilators into my Chosen. He doesn't get enough that he can touch Be'lakor as well. But Be'lakor also has an ability called Deadly Trap, which on a 4-up, he gives friendly units that are within his combat range, so within 3 inches of him, strike first.
Oh.
And I roll, and of course, I get it. And so my chosen go first, and they pick up his annihilators to the man.
Oh, geez.
So, and after that, like his momentum was broken. Yndrasta did next turn. She came up the field and did what she did. She wiped Be'lakor out in
Yep.
like one turn. Like I'm like, there's nothing I can do about it. Like she
Yep.
throws her spear at him, hits him, 6 damage. She gets in his face and cuts him in half. Like
Right.
so, and she did great. Like he did the right thing. He brought her straight down and started bringing her around. But by that time, I charged all my other units up into his,
Yep.
and I was thinning them out enough that I ended up winning the game because I was able to out. The double turn, I think, did Tommy in.
Right.
The the double turn's a cool mechanic, but you have to have the points gap and
Hmm.
I think we were neck and neck. It was like I scored 10 on primary, or I scored 10 in my turn. Tommy scored 10 in his turn. I scored 10. Tommy scored 10. So then him deciding to forego the battle tactic and then it kind of backfiring on him because
Yeah.
of the Dark
Because of,
Master ability,
yeah.
and me then being able to sweep some units, and then I'm outscoring him on primary, and I'm already got that 4 point lead
Yeah.
because of the double turn.
Yeah,
So
that'd be hard to close that gap in AOS to try and close it
it's
because there's no other, you're not getting like two secondaries where you can try and make up some points with
mhm.
something. It's just the one battle tactic and it's,
And it doesn't come up again, right? Like
yeah,
that's the thing about battle tactics. It's very strategic. If you pick it and you fail it, you can't pick it again.
yeah.
Um, so it's unfortunate, but great match. Tommy's a riot to play with. Like we have a lot of fun, uh, uh, and he's a good little opponent. Like he has like great plans, and it's of course I'm like, had I not had that ability, I
Oh,
think the
yeah.
game would have been his.
Yeah.
Um, but the timing worked out for me, and that was that. So at this point, I'm
Two for
two and
two.
oh, 2-0, 2 wins, 0 losses. I'm like, holy shit, when does this ever happen? And I think I texted you because at the one point, waiting for the third round, I was like first. Now, to be fair, not all the other scores were
We're in
in,
yet, but still.
but there was a brief second there where I was in first place. So I go over and check on Janet, and she's playing a guy named by the name of Logan, who's running Maggotkin of Nurgle.
Nice.
Very cool army. He had really great job painting them too. Like he'd done his own special touches to it. It wasn't like he was following the box art, but it looked gross and
Right.
sick and as you'd expect from those type of models.
Yeah.
And he had nothing but like big monsters on the table, like the Great Unclean one, and like the
Rodigus?
Rodigus, the named one, and then he had that other giant model. I think Sam has it. Uh,
Yes. Yeah. Oh God, I can't remember its name. It's got all the spikes on his
it's got
back
all
and
the spikes
stuff.
on its back,
I
and
can't remember its name. It's another really cool model.
it's another really cool model. And so I go and check in with Janet and see how she's doing because they were just kind of wrapping up, and I was like, "So, so who won?" And she's like, "I won." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm gonna have to play her in round three." I'm like, I'm guaranteed to lose if I play her. Not because like I'd let her win or anything like that, but I've been practicing against her and I know her list is hard to beat and
Yeah.
I haven't cracked it yet. So there we are, through
You
the
guys
game.
are
I
kicking
think
ass.
we're kicking ass. We're in the basically we're at the winning tables going into round three, right?
Hmm.
So round three, I pair into a guy named Scott, who I'd known from some of the other 40K events you and I have been to at Nexus.
Okay.
A familiar face for sure.
Okay.
Nice guy. He'd recently left Kingston, moved to Ottawa, but he'd come back for this AOS tournament. And he was running Sylvaneth. And Sylvaneth are like wood elves that ride
Hmm.
insects that also have vicious trees that fight with them.
Yeah, they have trees, and then they used to. I don't know if they have it in this edition. They had like a weird teleportation type of thing that they could do with trees.
Yeah, he could summon these wild woods and they would like buff his characters.
Okay.
And I think there may have been a teleport mechanic. Uh, Scott, I don't think I listened well enough when he was running down his list. And other than like I caught on like he had these a brick of like I think they're called Kuroth. They're basically the Sylvaneth equivalent of Varangard. So it's three
Okay.
tree guys with big swords.
Hmm.
They're they have 5 health each, so he's running a reinforced brick, so 6 of them. So it's 30 health to get through. That do crit mortals. Now, what his army could also do though was advance and charge. And you
Oh,
think I would have listened. and caught that part.
That little nugget would have
That little
stuck.
nugget may should have you would have thought, yeah, I'd have been like, oh, okay. So what you're telling me is I should be careful turn one with my brick of chosen.
Hmm.
And
I counter that idea with
yeah,
reckless abandon.
exactly. You know what worked well in the last two games? Forward, push forward. So he drops. It was like, yeah, I can't even explain how much of a brain fart like it felt like because I deployed wrong.
Hmm.
I didn't listen to that part or it didn't register. Um, and he drops his faction terrain, the Wildwood, right in his deployment zone. So it's just on the touch. So I was like, oh, that's easy enough for me to do a battle tactic on. But I don't get close enough to it. So I have to charge it. And then you have to fight when you charge. So I
Right.
destroy it and don't score the battle tactic. And I'm like, and just score a couple points on primary to start. And I'm like, oh, this has not gone how I
This is,
planned.
this is how did I end up at this
I was
winning
like,
table?
oh,
That's
well,
amazing.
yeah, one of those moments where I'm just like, oh, I quit. I'm never playing games again.
I am
That's
the
so
worst.
stupid. I keep calling my models when they screw up. I always bend down to the table and be like, you're a loser. You're a loser. Why don't you do better? And then at that moment, I realized I'm the loser.
I'm the loser. That's
Um,
amazing.
I was able to shut down. So his turn comes up, and then I shut down that killer unit to save me for one round.
Hmm.
Um, but he'd already charged my chosen, and like he picked them up. They didn't even get to swing against his guy. It was completely. It was a game. Uh, I don't know if I'd have won. But it was one of those ones where I'm like, oh, would have loved a do-over because
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, had I known all the everything that could like he could give 3 units advance in charge, I would have completely deployed differently. I would have considered a different battle tactic.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah, it was a painful lesson. So I got absolutely hammered in that turn. I think it was like 48 to 6 or something obscene like that.
Oh,
Like
wow. A
I was
humbling moment.
like spanked right in front, pants right down, leathered in front of everybody else in the tournament. Like like I don't know. I don't know what just happened. It was one of those moments where it's like, oh, for Christ's sake, I was doing so good up until that point. Um, yeah, so uh, I was done, and we were done by the end of turn two because I was pretty much tabled. Like it was not pretty. He had this other unit. He has this great unit that's like a giant tree. I'm gonna look it up. It's like, if you like those treants from Lord of the Rings, except
Hmm.
ones that look vicious instead of just
Yeah.
like stomping people with giant swords. This might be the faction for you.
Yeah, they're cool looking models. I feel stupid saying that because everything in AOS is cool, but they are very,
Hmm.
with the way the wood looks on them, with the
Yeah, and
detail in that, it's got this cool swirl, and the eyes can look really menacing if you paint them the right way and things like that. Like they can be really vicious looking models.
absolutely. And Scott was like, I complimented him on his paint job, and he's like, you know what? To be honest, it's like contrast paint and a quick dry brush because of the
Yeah.
because it's the wooden textures and things like that. And he goes, the Sylvaneth army, he's like, it's a pleasure to kind of paint because of that.
Hmm.
So there were Kurnoth hunters with Kurnoth great swords, were the uh, big brick of like deadly tree guys. But the big hammer unit was like a hero, Spirit of Durthu, which did flat 5 damage.
Mm.
Yeah. 4 attacks, hits on threes, wounds on twos, Ren 2, and
Oh,
flat 5
geez.
damage. And then his impaling talons, which were only two attacks, hits on fours, wounds on twos, two rend, and three damage with crit mortals. So a massive damage dealer.
Yeah.
330 points. I think that needs to go up a bit because it has because it picked up my three Varangard in one fight. Like it attacked them. And I failed three saves, and it was like, okay, it's five damage each. I'm like, well, that's great. There goes these guys.
Well, I'm glad I came to this goddamn
Yeah,
tournament.
yeah. I'm
Flip
glad
the
I.
table.
Yeah, it's like, exhausting. So, so then I went and saw Janet, and she's playing Tommy, and they're having a battle royale. Her daughter's a Kane against his Stormcast Eternals. Uh, Tommy being shocked. I mean, to go back to Janet's list and the Shadow Queen and Marathi,
Hmm.
it's like an 800 point model because it can only take three damage per turn. And it has 12 health in total. So it takes two
Or
full
turn.
battle rounds. So it
Yeah.
takes four turns to destroy it. Now, once you destroy one, the other one goes too.
Okay.
So they both disappear. In the meantime, it absolutely like it's got good melee.
Hmm.
It's got a cool ability where the two models can swap places,
Oh,
which is fun. Um, and uh, yeah,
that's a
and
very like Abaddon ninth edition type of thing where he can only take 4 damage in a turn. And
yes,
it's like,
that's
oh,
right.
okay, I guess he's sticking around regardless of what I'm doing.
Exactly, exactly. Now, I have the advantage of having played this a number
Yes.
of times, so I knew exactly there's a way to manage Marathi and the Shadow Queen. There is a way to like do it. Um, but I don't think Tommy could wrap his head around it because he kept attacking her, thinking, "I've got to get rid of her." Which I mean, yeah, the
Yeah, you
strategy is
do, but
you have to put the damage onto this thing. It's a monster. It has fly. Um, she because she has a health characteristic of 12. AOS has a great um, uh, stratagem command called Power Through. So at the end of your turn, you spend a command point, and if your health characteristic of your unit, so the individual model, has a higher health characteristic than the unit you're fighting, you can do D3 mortals and move out of combat.
oh.
So a unit like the Shadow Queen who moves 12 has health characteristic of 12 when she's fighting Stormcast Eternals or whatever,
Hmm.
she automatically 9 times out of 10 she has a higher health characteristic unless she's
Hmm.
fighting like a dragon or something. So you're like, here's my command point, here's your D3 mortals, and I'll see you later.
Hmm.
And so she can move all over the board, wreaking havoc, doing power through all day long. She doesn't need to use, all out attack or all out
Yeah.
defense. So it's a great stratagem. And I mean, I thought about it. I was like, can you imagine that in 40K? I'm sure someone out. So I'm sure there's a unit out there that has it
Hmm.
or has something kind of like that. And
Yeah.
my own ignorance, just I don't know. But
That's
so
that's crazy.
it's a great command ability.
Hmm.
But when you're using a big monster that can only take three damage a turn to do it, it's pretty significant. So,
Yeah.
needless to say, I think by turn three, Tommy had like one, maybe two units left on the table, and so the game was Janet's. And so then the rankings come out. Now, I placed 6 out of 18, so I was very happy with how I did. I got absolutely pumped in that last
Hmm.
match, so I was surprised to make the top 10 because I was like, I scored 6 points, like it was pathetic.
Yeah.
And doesn't Janet play second? Her
Good God.
second fucking tournament. of
Never
Age of
watches a
Sigmar.
battle report,
Yeah, she's
doesn't
no.
do any of this,
She
hasn't put the
comes.
time in.
She comes second. It was fantastic. I
That's
was so
amazing.
thrilled. I had a big grin. I was calling her champion the rest of the night into the next day. Like, it was such a thrill.
That's so great.
Um, and everyone there was genuinely happy for her.
That's
Uh,
fantastic.
well, especially when the Welcome to AOS tournament, I think she placed in the bottom third or something like that.
Hmm.
And and then to go into her next AOS tournament and then come
Coming
second.
second.
It
Good
was
God.
just something else entirely. So yeah, no, it was really good. Shout out to Ian Clark, friend of mine that I've been playing Horus Heresy with, and of course AOS with. Ended up coming first, and I haven't asked Shannon because Ian got presented like a little, nice little glass kind of trophy
Oh,
that
cool.
had like the official Warhammer logo on it, and so I'll have to ask Shannon where that came from because I was like, that's awesome, man! Like a nice
Hmm.
little token for winning the tournament. Um, so yeah, I know it was perfectly run. We had a lot of fun. Uh, Great community. Like that's one thing I don't think, looking around and looking at the faces and watching people play and stuff like that, I don't think anyone was like, "Oh, I'm playing this guy" or anything like that. Like the vibe was very positive, very
That's awesome.
chill. It really was a great time, and I can't wait till he runs the next one. Because
Damn. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
if you keep going like this, you won't be in the league. It'll only
yeah, I know.
be
Well, yeah, I'll just change the background. I'll change it to a 40K one, and I'll be
and you'll be fine.
yeah. Because spoiler alert, we're recording this on December 8th, and yesterday I played in the Secret Santa tournament. And don't worry, I am firmly in the fucking Constellation League. Because
What builds you up must bring you back
yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, winning is
But
is a cruel and vengeful.
it is. It really is.
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing. That's why I
yeah,
was saying at the beginning of this, like AOS seems to be your thing. Like you seem to really not only thoroughly enjoy it, but you do really, really well at the competitions and stuff. Like you're
yeah. I'm pretty. Yeah, I think. Well, I think it. So I have to say, it helps that my list and the art faction I've chose to play is pretty straightforward, and I think plays in a style that I like,
right.
charge and fight. So that's a simple mechanic. There's nothing complicated. Move my
Hmm.
stuff up the board, get in their faces and start smashing them. So it's not subtle in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I don't everything's pretty tough. Like
Hmm.
most of the units have a decent save. So I don't it's not glass cannoning anywhere near it, right? So I think an army like that or Stormcast, those ones kind of suit my play style quite a bit. Even I'm sure Maggotkin and Nurgle,
Hmm.
because Janet was telling me a little bit about how they play and the diseased mechanic they hand out and stuff like that. Like those kind of things would suit my style. So I think that helps. Um, and really, I think I think this rule set, this new edition, there's something that just clicks in my head with it.
Hmm.
And I find the battle tactic thing, uh, that strategy is just interesting and has you thinking more. And the fact that it's not like a deck of cards with all these like different things that have to do.
Hmm.
It's just like six, maybe eight different
Right.
tricks that I can pull off. I'm sure it's the same number when I say it out loud. The S40K on secondaries, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, assassinate, sabotage, cleanse,
Well,
behind, establish,
there's
maybe a few
16 or
more,
something
but
like that. But
is there
yeah, it's
16?
I think something like that. So it sounds like, and this will sound stupid because I know it was the tagline in 10th edition. It sounds like AOS
Mm,
is really the simplified, not simple, but
not simple.
simplified.
100% because it really like if you miss a deployment, your deployment's not quite right, or you moved a unit over here, well, you may have set yourself up for failure for scoring those battle tactics in
Hmm.
not only that turn, but maybe in future turns. So it does force you to think ahead a little bit more about, hey, where do I want to be
Yeah.
in round three?
Yeah.
Which maybe it helps me visualize it. The board's the same, but the objectives and the way the battle plans are, and there's less terrain, it's easier to sort of visualize.
Hmm.
Whereas when I play 40K, and I've had that advice, we've certainly talked to people on this podcast about like, where do I want to be in turn three and things like that. It's sort of like, I always have a harder time picturing that because I'm
Well,
weaving through buildings and,
and that's the thing. And your opponents do shoot and scoot, or they can move. They've
mm,
got teleportation
mm,
shenanigans. I think it's probably not fair comparing the two because they are so diametrically
they are,
opposed.
they are different. They're so
Like
different.
it is 40K is way more complicated with what
Mm,
the armies can do and
100%.
who's got broken rules or
Yeah.
the more extreme buffs and who doesn't. And there's a bigger gap between those kind of guys. It's not balanced in the same, not to
Well,
say AOS is balanced, but it's not,
mm,
I don't think there's a chasm, I think, on balancing in the two of them.
so I know that Sylvaneth are like doing very well in the like AOS meta,
Hmm.
and for obvious reasons. But I didn't feel like I didn't have a chance against them.
That's
Had I
good.
listened, had I
Yes.
listened when my opponent was speaking and explaining the rules of his army, I think I would have been able to counter it or at least challenge them in a more significant way than I had.
Right.
Um, where I guess in 40K, because I find that if I don't know the faction at all, I am playing the game behind the eight ball, like or
Yes.
on my back foot the entire 5 rounds.
I feel that
Whereas in
completely.
AOS, I feel a little bit more like my first match, it was just is disciple, the Zinch stuff. I'm like, I've never played this. There's a ton of magic. And the first turn, by the end of the first battle round, I was like, I'm in a lot of trouble here. Like, there's a lot of spells or whatever. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna have to get on this and move these guys here and start locking down these primaries because I'm like, he can't move over here to shoot these guys. I'll
Hmm.
move these guys here, charge them in so he's got all this threat in the left to deal with, and he'll forget about here. And so I was able to adapt because my mechanic's simple, I guess.
Right.
Um, and my guys don't really have shooting, and they have a couple spells, but it's not magic out the wazoo, right? So
Hmm.
I didn't feel like having no idea what his army was going to do or be able to do next. I was like, I can still adapt to this. I've seen the first volley and I'm like, okay, I know how to counter and just punch him in the face. So it's easy. It's easy.
When in doubt, punch him in the
What in
face.
the Yeah, so maybe I should just play like World Eaters.
I was thinking that.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's
Mhm.
not a the rules thing. It's like maybe I just need to focus on armies that are just more
Your
like
style.
streamlined for combat. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, it was great. Yeah, shout out to Shannon and Kingston Gaming Nexus for hosting. It was a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to the next one. I definitely think you should get into it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Hmm.
It will be a total a refreshing break from 40K for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of something that I'm not so quietly looking for right now is kind of that breath of
Hmm.
fresh air. So even though spoiler alerts, we'll be recording a podcast in the not too distant
Hmm.
future talking about Kill Team. But just played some of that and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just having something different is just a lot
Hmm.
of fun. So having that
Yeah,
variety in things makes a big difference to the hobby.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, despite that performance from me at the Festival of the White Dwarf, I will still be seeing you people in the future in the Consolation League, without a doubt.
Yes. If anybody wants to leave us comments, please do. Always like, subscribe, whatever. It helps us in everything. And until next
Absolutely.
time, we will see you later.
Thank you.